Welcome to Rooster Radio, a broadcast dedicated to supporting and promoting local artists in the Gaston County and surrounding areas.
This episode of Rooster Radio is brought to you by Liquid Death. Murder your thirst. You know, one of my favorite things about partnering with Liquid Death here at the Rooster is a lot of people will come in and ask for water, and I hand them this can of Liquid Death, and I get that same look. Everyone looks at me like, I asked for water. I'm like, that is water. And it's funny because a lot of times the older crowd will be like, no, I want some water, please. I'm like, yeah. It is water.
It's good.
It's good water. Yeah, it's really good.
This past Friday was the first time I actually tried it, and my buddy that came with me, he's been wanting to try it too. So that's why he really likes sparkling water. So he really liked the sparkling. Yeah, he's actually going to talk to his boss at the shop that he works at about trying to get it in there.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, the sparkling is great, man. We carry 2 of their 3 flavored sparklings. They've got
flavored ones too?
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Yeah, they've got lime, severed lime. And then they've got berry, a wild berry flavor. And I like both of them. They also have a mango flavor, but we don't carry that here. It doesn't really move. But yeah, we've got the sparkling, the lime, and the berry, and then the plain water. And we sell a lot of it too. I mean, it's really good stuff. It's quality product. And we partner with them because it kind of fits what we do. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We're a music venue. We do a lot of rock and roll stuff. Liquid Death, bye.
And you've got that bucket deal for 14. That's a good deal too.
That's true. We when we did the partnership with Liquid Death, what we did was we agreed to carry or keep some things on our menu that featured Liquid Death product. So one of those specials is the Death Bucket. You can get a Death Bucket. It's 4 domestic beers and 2 waters for $14. Our domestic beers are $4 a piece, so you're already saving $2 on 4 beers, and you're getting 2 free waters. Yeah. It's a great deal.
It's a great deal, and it kind of helps you keep responsible too with drinking. Because I mean, at some point in the night, you're going to be driving back home, and you need to do so safely.
That's correct, and that's one of the things that I like about the Death Bucket Special is, you know, if you're going to be drinking domestic beer, drink some water, stay hydrated. You know, it's great, and that's the other cool thing about Liquid Death is when you're at a show and you are drinking and you take a break between drinks to drink a Liquid Death. You're holding this can that looks cool, like it doesn't feel like a little flimsy bottle of water. Yeah. You know, it's cool. Liquid Death is cool what they do, and I couldn't be prouder to be partnered with them here at the Rooster. So next time you're here and you're thirsty, ask for a Liquid Death. We'll get one for you.
We brewed essentially a nice malty amber for a base, and then added some butterscotch to it. So
was it good?
I mean, it was this year was actually drinkable, but even for a beer nerd, it was a decent beer. But generally, butterscotch is not what I add to my beers. But people loved it, and this year was the best batch we've ever made.
It just keeps getting better. I had some people in here this past weekend that they were drinking. They've been going through like trying all your beers that I have here. And it was a married couple, and they were talking about how they used to go to Cavendish a lot, and that they really liked that social lubrication, which I remember that as well. And they said that y'all don't have it anymore. So
I am brewing it tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So was there a reason you put a pause on it, or?
Yeah. Last year we had an error, and we put the wrong yeast into it. Oh. Instead of a Belgian yeast, we put in a British yeast, and we made a completely different beer.
So what'd you call that?
In the end, that became our English Summer Ale. Okay. And it was a really good British beer. It just was not a Belgian beer, so my beer nerdiness would not allow it. So we had to classify it correctly and come up with a new beer name, and then that became popular. So now people are mad that we're going back to Social Lube, and they don't have that one. So.
I mean, I remember the social lubrication. I remember when I met you for, well, the first time I met you was when we did the Leadership Gaston tour, and we stopped by, and you were talking about how the social lubrication was your alternative to people that come in and ask for a Bud Light. I believe you told us that you kept Bud Light in your cooler for these people, but you would ask them to try this first.
They would not get a Bud Light unless we did not sell Bud Light. We sold Bud Challenges. In which case, the only way to get a Bud Light is you had to have it with any Cavendish beer. You pick it and put them side by side, and you get them both.
So fucking gross.
And we got so much press on that. We got on news. We were on like Fox News being interviewed about that. It was all in the papers, and it got back to 4 separate divisions of the Budweiser Corporation who clamped down the local distributor, and now it is illegal for me to buy Budweiser.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. I am banned from buying a Bud product because I put their product in a bad light. In other words, I gave them a fair comparison against mine. So
I mean,
Meaning your beer's probably 10 times better than Bud.
we could convert Bud drinkers 70% of the time, and they didn't like that.
I can't. Oh Jesus! I just don't. Why does that matter to such a?
I know they're
why
like,
does
oh,
that
How many
matter?
billions of dollars
Yeah,
do they make?
exactly.
That's why it
Exactly.
matters.
They make so much fucking money. Like, why does it matter?
I mean, if anything, if I would have had the exact opposite, I would have been like, let's get them in our warehouse. And let's make that challenge a Coors Light challenge or a Miller Light challenge. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would have tried to flip you.
Being a giant like that, be like, hey man, can we buy some of your beer? You know, and see.
Well,
see
what
how
happens
it does.
with a lot of breweries that are successful, like we got a lot of hot water with their diehards because they sold to Anheuser, which was the plan the whole time. If you know anything about the history of that brewery, there was 4 rich dudes that just put their money together and was like, we're going to make a product and we're going to sell it.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we get the offer, we're out. And that's exactly what they did. They didn't disguise that that's what they were doing. But you know, they're fine. They ain't going anywhere now. Anheuser owns that brand. You know, they just made them bigger. But that happens with a lot of breweries. They, especially ones that are regionally successful. One of the distributors is going to get a hold of them.
Right.
Well, it at some point, you know, like I originally started trying self-distro. That's hard, you know. I mean, you got to send a guy around, roaming around town to try to talk to bar owners that are too busy and don't want to talk to them during specific hours where they're not busy, which is very narrow, maybe between 2 and 4 and before 11, and then offer your products up, and in the one event that they want, they might pick one up. But you end up putting so many hours of labor in what is essentially selling one $70 keg. So what I found after several years of this is for every $70 keg that we sold, I was putting $150 into selling it. And in the end, COVID made us re-examine a lot of things in life, one of which was the unsustainability of that model. And so, you know, we're like, no more self-distro, no more delivery team, no more sales team. And we signed up with distributors. And just because that's all they want to do is take your product, mark it up 30+% and sell it to.
Yeah, and they don't. I mean, they don't. The whole structure of the laws surrounding beer sales, they don't make it easy because you either have to self-distribute or go with a distributor. And going with a distributor, you're running the risk that they're going to bury your brand.
And in North Carolina, it's particularly egregious that as soon as they sell your beer, they have your rights to your brand forever, and I can't get it back. I can't fire a distributor. In North Carolina, it's written into the laws that once they have your brand, they have it until they release it.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole other conversation we could have about barriers to entry, for success. But that's just one slice of that pie. You know, it's specifically with alcohol sales. They do, and even more so in North Carolina than most states. I mean, you go up down the street to South Carolina, go up to Kentucky, Virginia. It's a lot easier to get alcohol for bar owners. It's a whole lot easier to sell alcohol. They make it really fucking hard for guys like me to sell beer and liquor, specifically liquor. I can actually get beer cheaper than you can at the store, but I pay more for liquor than you do at the liquor store.
That's weird.
Yeah, was it $3.75 per bottle, and all they're paying for is that little sticker to say that you paid your $3.75. And because of that, they have teams of officers and folks roaming around to verify your stickers, and they'll find the crap
That's
out
how
of you.
government works, Scott. In case no one's told you, they create problems that don't exist and then hire themselves
To fix them?
To fix them.
Yeah.
That is government in a nutshell.
And punish you for messing it up.
That's so terrible.
I used to be a big believer in government could be done right, but I'm getting jaded. Maybe it's just being a
It
business
can be.
owner.
Down to the same thing.
It can be.
I don't own a business.
It can be done correctly.
It can be,
but most often it's not.
Yeah. Well, what we're dealing with now is capitalism gone wild, right? Capitalism works until you start bailing out industries and you start, giving favor to certain industries. For me, the true capitalism died in 2008 when all the banks got bailed out for the subprime mortgages they sent out. They don't let those banks fail. A lot of people would have lost a lot of money, but a lot of people already lost a lot of money. Mm-hmm. The only difference is the people that lost money were poor. You know what I'm saying? The poor were going to stay poor regardless. But the bank bailout just kept rich people rich, and it kept the puppet masters doing.
So I've thought about this a lot over the years, and with over a lot of beers actually, and what I realized is it was always that way.
Yeah.
The rich always controlled the money. The poor were always poor, and sometimes they get more or less poor, but they're still poor. And capitalism died. Or took over and dominated probably more in the 1800s, not in 2000.
It was 1912, I think, is when
the robber barons. Remember reading about that with the 7 people that owned 98% of everything in the country, and everybody else was just a slave.
Is that right after the Titanic went down? Is that?
I'm not sure. I think I'm not sure when the Titanic went down, but there was when the banking laws drastically got overhauled in the very early 1900s, and I can't remember.
They got overhauled after Black Friday in the 20s, the stock crash, and then the Great Depression happened after that, after all the rampant speculation.
When they introduced the Federal Reserve and made the Federal Reserve, which is a private corporation, the national bank, all the rules changed, and since then they've just keep figuring out ways to keep that separation. And that's.
Yeah.
I really don't want to get political, but the truth is, anyone that's out there fighting a race war, they're fighting the wrong war. It's not a race war that we're in; it's a class war. And that's the real powerful people in the world.
Pretty much they
don't give a fuck what color you are.
Basically,
they don't care what color you are. They care that they can keep what they got and get more, and keep you fighting about shit that don't matter.
But has that always been that way?
It's an age-old concept, right?
It was probably that way in the Egyptians.
I was going to say it was that way in Egypt. It was that way. It's just human. People figured out a long time ago human nature and how to manipulate people and stuff, and that's it's just a nonstop cycle. Every great society has this cycle, and it ends up. Are we on the back end of America's greatness? Who knows? It feels like it sometimes, but then you get motivated and inspired by some of the awesome stuff that people keep coming up with.
Yeah.
So
I don't think they have a craft beer revolution in China. They'll probably get carted away for that. We got some good stuff.
Speaking of craft beer, let's. I guess we can officially start. Have you been recording? We're good. Okay.
You've been recording?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We've been talking about.
Yeah. I like doing that.
Actually, I was just educated a bunch just now, and that was awesome.
So we're talking to John Lutmer and Scott Cavendish today. Scott Cavendish is the founder and owner of Cavendish Brewery. We're all having Cavendish beers here. And John Lutmer is lead singer of Detest the Throne, who will be performing here at the Rooster for St. Patrick's Day. Welcome to the show, fellas.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
So we brought Scott and John in together today to kind of promote the St. Patrick's Day show. When John and I booked the show, he put together a hell of a lineup. Let me go ahead and give us the rundown. Who's headlining?
So we have Echoes of Humanity opening up. They're some young high schoolers. They're all 16 and 17 years old, and they're really, really good. The drummer plays and has a headset and screams with his headset and sings and stuff. So it was cool to have some younger kids that have been asking to play with.
Kind of like Fear Illusion. You remember Fear Illusion opened the Headbangers Ball, and they're 16, 17-year-old kids.
Same thing. Those, the younger kids love watching the older guys play, and they were like, "Hey, can we play with you?" So I was like, "Yeah, man, this is a perfect opportunity." So we brought them on, and then we have Mafia. Violent End was a special guest that kind of got added on later, and then also we have Fractured Frames, and to close it out is Until They Bleed. So it's just a stacked lineup of a lot of very talented bands, and it's really cool that like all of us can come together and like talk about this, because I've been telling everybody, I've been plugging it on the Facebook, on the Instagram, like Cavendish Beer is supplying $3 beers all day long for the event. So I think that's so cool. That's that green beer. And a lot of green beer, yeah. So we have a lot of metal heads that are beer drinkers. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So when John and I started putting the show together, John had mentioned teaming up with one of the breweries, and my first call 100% of the time is always to Scott or text or whatever, and I'm like, can you do this or do you want to do this? And of course they probably already had the green beer in the vat when I called you, but they had like, we're going to do green beer. So we're going to do a $3 green beer special all show for St. Patty's. Now, and another reason I wanted to talk to John about booking the show is because, I don't want to get accused of appropriating anything. So, like, when it came to what am I going to do for St. Patty's Day, I was like, fuck it, we're going to do a metal show because we have an Irish pub right up the street. They do a thing. I'm not going to step on those toes. I'm not going to make people decide if they want to go see Irish music or not. We're just going to do what we do, and we're going to throw down at a metal show. And then John brought up sponsoring and getting a beer special. So I called Scott, and Scott graciously offered to sell me a couple of kegs of that green beer at a reduced rate, and I said, "All right, let's do it." So now we're here promoting it. Yeah. So thank you both, for being flexible and easy to work with.
For sure.
And that's another reason I love Cavendish Brewery is because Scott's so easy to work with. And if it's all right with you, I want to talk to Scott for a minute about the brewery and how things are going. You're 6 years in now.
Let's talk about some beer, man.
Yeah. 6 years in. So before we
I will say there's only two places in town to get our green beer, and that is at the brewery and here. And that's
you hear that?
That's a special.
Can't get it anywhere else, baby. You got to come here to the brewery.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah, we got custom-made green beer. That's awesome.
Now, so you're not originally from Gastonia.
I'm not. I moved around a bunch. Yeah.
Moved around a bunch as a kid, but you landed in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm. Sure did. Yep.
So pick it up from there. You land in Charlotte. How do you go from landing in Charlotte to starting a brewery?
Lots of bad decisions in life. No, I got into home brewing about 23 years ago, and just being an engineer, just one day it occurred to me, I'm drinking beer and I don't know what's in it. I don't know how it's made. I don't know where it comes from, and that bothered me. It's like, clearly I need to read up on the subject. And I did, and then I just found myself fascinated, and at the time I worked a lot of night shifts, and I just kept reading more books, and then got a little homebrew Mr. Beer, and started making awful beer, and then, but eventually it got better, and then I started experimenting with, first you start with the kits, because that's what you do in the beginning, then all grain, then malt extract, then all grain, then building a bigger system and a carboy system, and then finally, probably about 11 years ago, I decided, I bet I could design and build my own little, brew rig and gas-fired control systems, and I built that in my garage.
That's so cool.
And that's where the first social lubrication came from. It was a batch gone wrong, actually, and we made this beer that was supposed to be, a nice normal Belgian blonde ale, 5.5%, and it came out at 8.2. And I was like, wow, okay, what do we do with this? Well, I guess we drank it. So we were making I think a Russian Imperial Stout one day with a bunch of friends, and we were drinking this keg of what would become social lubrication. And so this 8% beer, and we drank it, and we're making the beer. We forgot to put hops in the beer. I mean, the beer was a complete loss, but we had a grand time. And at the end, we called it social lubrication. Let's make that again. That's
nice.
That's awesome. That's a great story.
That is a cool story. Yeah.
But later on, one point I decided I time to upgrade my awesome homebrew system in my garage, and decided, I wonder if I could take my retirement plan and build a real one. And so that became.
Now
this place.
you're really downplaying that decision. You're being way too casual about that, because most engineers are engineers. You don't see a lot of engineers breaking off and saying, "I'm going to do my own thing." So there's something in you. I want to dig a little bit and find out what it is about you that made you different, and decide, you know what, I'm going to take this risk. Because engineering in and of itself is mitigating risk. You're figuring out how things work and how to make things work. Mm-hmm. It's not like an engineer to take that big of a risk. So where'd that come from?
My dad. My mom was the physicist, no risk type person, and my dad was the crazy pilot musician.
Okay.
Professional musician for 40 years.
That's so cool.
And so you end up with an engineer that can design or fix power stations and all of my day job, but also, I played in rock bands and whatnot,
right.
and so I have an appreciation for the art, the music. I love to just pick an instrument. I can jam with anything. Just put on music and I'll play.
Well, it shows too with the way you run your business, because from day one you were always bringing in music and other forms of art and stuff at the brewery, and I for one appreciate that you've done that, and you still do.
I do. The city didn't know what to think of us. They're like, you're doing a Star Wars, Star Trek mixer, and then the next time we're having like a Hawaiian luau with steel drums, and the next month we're having the dog days of summer and dogs. Like, really, dogs? And then we had a pig roast, and then we we had our Marvel versus DC comics. Everybody came in spandex with their costumes, and then our Harry Potter party, when we decorated the whole bar as Harry Potter, with owls and brooms and a wizard rock band, and just we quickly got a reputation as they do some weird stuff, but it's fun. We did Doctor Who. We rented the TARDIS once and had the TARDIS in the middle of the bar, and we did a Monty Python one. People drove
nice,
for like
yeah.
4 hours away just to
Yes.
just to get out there and to see the killer rabbits, and we had an argument booth set up where people would sit and argue. So we had a good time.
That's awesome.
It's good stuff,
I love
man.
it.
So we definitely how do you take a place that was one of the roughest corners in town 10, 15 years ago and turn it into what is now a city gem? It's like, well, you just got to change that entire tune to something else.
Well, I for one am grateful that you came to Gastonia. You could have picked anywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
My suspicion is that you probably couldn't have found a piece of property that large and that accommodating for the price you got it for. It's, I got the same thing here. I got this property, quote unquote dirt cheap, but a lot needed to be done. Just like with
By the
yours.
time you're done, it's not cheap.
Yeah, it's not cheap when you're done. It looks cheap when you look at the purchase price, but it's the upfit that's where it gets
That'll
you.
get you.
Yeah.
Building a brewery was a lot more than it's easily 4 times the budget I thought it was.
How rocked were you at the end of the day? Like, you've pulled the trigger. You've said, I'm doing this. You buy the property. I'm assuming you already did you get your architectural drawings before or after you bought the property?
After.
So
I already
talk
committed.
about that gut punch when you saw the price tag.
Oh yeah.
This is what needs to be
Well,
done.
it's good. I mean, this is 7 years ago, pre-COVID, so it's probably double now. But no, when I first got the place, I was like, okay, well, I didn't know anything about opening an alcohol producing business or the 14 regulatory bodies that were going to manage me or all the local zoning, city, county, state stuff. I got an education real fast. I thought, honestly, I was going to take my homebrew system, roll it out of my garage, and roll it into my new building and open doors and put out picnic tables. And that's what you would do in a third world country, and that's how you open a bar. But not here. Not here. Then was like a year of just emptying everything you've ever had. It took five people an entire year to build it. just the architect drawing. Like, I'm an engineer. I can draft. I got this. No, you're not allowed to. Like, why not? It's like, no, it has to be a licensed blah, 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 blah. Okay, let me get that person. And then I found those people in order to take my old 1952 car dealership and turn it into a brewery and draw it up. The best price I found was $30,000.
I was just gonna say probably about $30,000.
Yeah.
To buy the property?
No,
No.
just for the drawings,
for the drawings
to update the property.
Yeah, to update the property.
Actual
Because we had
Yeah.
changed, because we're taking an old industrial building and turned it into something people could go into, which is called public occupancy. Then I had to take my 1952 building and bring it up to 2017 building code.
Yep.
And that damn near bankrupted me. It just brutal. It would have been cheaper to bulldoze it and build a new building.
Almost. It's true. It's true,
That's
John.
crazy.
Like the same thing happened with this property for me. There was absolutely nothing in this building that we could use. So we had to completely gut it and start fresh. I mean, we had
Just
to cut
start
into
from
the
scratch.
slab for plumbing and
Yeah.
sewer and all that stuff. And it's a big risk, but at the end of the day, it's worth it if you get to do what you want to do.
Well, and you end up with a building that has character to it, right? We're in the center of a town, and we're part of the story of refurbishing and I guess bringing the town back to life, and it's happening right around us.
When 2017, when you started, when you opened, I was, excuse me, this idea, I was still kicking this idea around. I didn't act on it until the end of 2018. But I was kicking this idea around for a while, and I was waiting. The reason I hadn't acted is I was waiting for a catalyst. And in 2017, 2018 is when they finally started cleaning up the old Sears building and they took down the old motel and built the new stadium.
Yeah.
And you popped up, and all this buzz started circling, and I talked to my wife about it and was like, now's the time. If we don't do it now, then it's not going to happen. And then so we pounced as well. And, I'm grateful for people like you because, it's, first of all, it takes a lot of balls to pull the trigger on a risk like this, especially in a town like Gastonia, which is like the last Wild West type town in terms of development around Charlotte. Everything else around Charlotte's kind of been gobbled up by bigger corporate interest. And, some of the towns, everything looks the same. And Gastonia is just and for so long it's had this bad reputation of, Gastonia,
But that's why it's going to succeed too.
That's exactly
because
why
if you
it's
look
succeed.
at every other area of town that is now the coolest places in town, Noda, you wouldn't be caught dead at Noda 20 years ago.
Yep.
South End, same thing. Plaza Midwood, maybe a little better, but still, there were rough areas. And then what happened was that with the rent was so cheap because it was a rough area, and that attracted the artists, and the artists made it suddenly had all this neat stuff, and suddenly people started coming in, and then all the cool kids started going where the artists were, and bars popped up, and then suddenly now you have the cool area of town.
Yeah.
And Gastonia is following that model.
And downtown in particular, like for a long time, Belmont's been the hot shit in Gaston County, and now that places like ours and others are popping up in downtown Gastonia, it's becoming a new hotspot. Now, let me make an odd segue here. We're talking about all these art districts and all these artsy parts of towns. John, you sing in a heavy metal band, a really heavy metal band.
Yeah.
Talk about getting gigs and like when you guys try to book gigs, are you looking at specific parts of town? Are you thinking about the area you're playing in at all? Or are you just looking for a stage to play at?
So for us, it's really like where we're gonna play it really depends on like the bands, like the venue, what we're actually gonna like bring to that town or whatever spot. When we first started, we were taking everything. We were taking any gig. Basically the grind is whatever all the bands call it. Hey, you got to grind for a while until your name starts to build and build and build. And we did that. We did that for about a year and a half, and then finally getting to a point now where it's like, okay, hey guys, we need to kind of like build our shows a little bit better and make them.
Well, when you're hungry, when you're trying to get noticed, you're going to take any opportunity you get.
Exactly.
But then when you kind of get to like the next tier,
Yes,
right? The next
right.
tier is,
That's the
all right,
next
people
level.
know who we are.
Yeah.
Then you got to start thinking about who else is on the bill.
Right.
You know, what type of crowd does this venue bring? And, you know, I don't want anyone to get any negative idea about
No.
that thought process, because self-awareness is really important when you're an artist. You know, Scott, have you ever had a heavy metal show at your bar?
Yes, actually.
Oh, really?
You have?
I think Van Huskins, aren't they?
They're punk.
Are they punk?
I love
Oh,
Ben
okay.
Huskins.
I do too. They're going to be
Yeah.
here this.
They
they're
used to
gonna be
drink
here
at my bar all the time,
They
and we
just-
gave them some of their first gigs.
I've
Yeah,
known Ben for 20 plus years.
yeah. Mike's a good friend of mine.
Ben's a good dude.
Actually, Mike was on the
Yeah,
last episode
awesome
of the
guy.
podcast.
Yeah.
But you know, it's certain. The point that I'm making is that certain venues lend themselves to certain sounds.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm over here breaking all the rules because we just had a ukulele band play
that's
here,
awesome.
and then we've got a heavy metal show for St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck it. You know, Cinco de Mayo, we have a hip hop and heavy metal show that like it's a rap rock show. Like
It's gonna be fun.
it is going to be fun. It's
I
going to be real fun.
think honestly, like here in the last couple months, I've mentioned your venue to other bands, and they're just like, yeah, I already know about I've heard of the Rooster. I know what the Rooster is, and I'm like, I love that because Gastonia has not had a music venue like this in a long time. I think the Alamo maybe.
I keep hearing about the Alamo.
20 years ago.
I
maybe.
was not living in Gastonia. I spent 7 years living in another part of the state, and I think the Alamo happened while I was gone. Because
Yeah.
when I left, the Graduate was where all the music was.
I remember the Graduate,
Yeah.
but yeah, the Alamo was the last time there was actual music venue. But this is like the way you like made this venue and put it up, and like it's very professional. Very like when you walk in, you're like, dude, this is a venue. This is a music venue. You know, like there's some venues you walk in and you're like, dude, are we in another, like, are we in space right now? Like, what's happening? You know, like, so you have no idea what you're walking into. But when you walk into the Rooster, you know, like, cool. There's a huge Rooster. There's music notes. There's a bunch of stuff on the walls. You know, like it makes you feel like you're a part of it. So. And
I
then,
appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, that's
a
awesome.
lot of artists have complimented our space, and I'm grateful for that. That artists respect and appreciate what I've done here.
And the fact that, like, I've been to Cavendish too, and when you walk into Cavendish, it's the same feeling. It's like you walk in, you're like, oh man, this feels like a brewery. You know, like there's couches, there's tables, there's like little spots that you can just chill out. And your guys' food is amazing, by the way.
Those pizzas are on fire, son. I love those pizzas.
And then when you look up at the menu, you're like, dude, I could literally just order any beer I want. Like, what is that beer? I want to know what that beer is.
Yeah.
So I go on like a beer journey when I'm in Cavendish because I can just like Pilsner, IPA, like not too many IPAs because then you know.
IPAs will put your dick in the dirt. Specifically, your beer, Scott. I've had several people come in here and order your beers and talk about your beers and be like, I love going to Cavendish, but I can't have but 2 of them beers. Them beers get me messed up.
Yeah, well, we had to back it down a bit. There was a point when all our beers were 6, 7, 8+% up to 12. And the problem with bars are like they drink one, they fall off their bar stool.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, we backed. So social lubrication was 8.2. We backed it down to 6 and change.
Now, how do you do that? How do you reduce the alcohol content when you're brewing something like that? What makes the difference there, and how do you do it without changing the flavor?
I mean, there's going to be a little bit of change in flavor, but for the most part, alcohol comes from sugars that are eaten by yeast. And the sugars come from grain, barley has natural enzymes that will break starches into sugars. So you literally add more grain to make a higher alcohol beer.
Okay.
And then depending on what temperatures you play with, you can make it either a full body beer or a very dry, crisp beer, and that's part of the brewing magic.
I was just about to use that same comparison. It's almost like you are like a wizard, like a Harry Potter wizard.
I mean, you don't see it, but every single
Wand
batch, myself and Dennis behind the scenes, we're tasting it. We're like, we need to raise the mash temperature by 2 degrees, and we need to lower the fermenter by 1, and we are dialing it in so that when you walk in there, if you went to any one of the countries that I make a beer style of, you would have a perfect example of that beer made right here.
That's so cool.
That is cool. That's one of the things that drew me to your brewery in the first place was that you kind of make. I think at one time you were using the term old world style beers. I don't know if you still do or not.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that because you probably remember. I would say around 05, 06 is probably when this craft beer revolution started. This is the mid 2000s. And it's carried itself all the way into now. Now people are drinking fucking TV static in white cans, but whatever. but there was like this 15-year spread of this craft beer revolution. And people were going ham with it, man. Just all kinds of crazy ideas. And now that things have settled down, actually, the truth is now like there's like this bourbon revolution. That's kind of where all the youngsters are heading
bars
to,
and stuff.
whiskey bars and lounges.
There's lots of new trends. I mean, there was the seltzer one that was coming through recently.
Seltzery, there's
Alco
seltzer.
Pops is a new one. Back to distilled liquor, like, again, maybe try to get the carbs out of it. And the newest one that's hitting, I guess, now is non-alcoholic beers. And that's going to be one of the next trends.
That's okay.
I don't think I could
It'd
get
be a
into
real
that
awkward
trend.
date conversation. I ran out of beer.
Are we on Facebook Live or not?
No.
This is not going to carry.
No, this will go out next week.
Oh, I'm telling people. I'm like, yeah, we're all going to be on Rooster Facebook
No.
Live.
We record.
Okay.
We tried to do the live stream thing with the
Yeah.
podcast, and two things happened. At the time, we were doing it in my home office, and I live out in the sticks, so my Wi-Fi isn't the strongest. So we just were not able to get things going. And the other reason why I don't live stream anything is because people are so unpredictable.
Yeah, and you can edit.
Yeah, I withhold the option to edit stuff if I need to. Like we've brought people's names up on the show before that might not want to be mentioned on camera, so we can go back and beep their names and stuff like that. I just for me it's all. Everything that we do is done with intention.
Yeah.
Everything about opening this place, everything was done with intention. Just like you said, this place was built for artists. So, and that goes, it even applies to the podcast, is I want to make sure that we're intentional. That's why you don't hear me talking politics and religion on the show, I mean, we got into it a little bit before the show, but I quickly, moved that conversation along because I don't want, that's not what we're here for.
Right.
And so, so that's why we don't do the live stuff.
I get that. No, I totally get that.
Yeah, and I don't live stream anything on the stage because fuck you, come here and buy a ticket and support these bands. I'm not going to give people this entertainment sitting on their couch.
For free.
Yeah.
Come
You
down
could get
here
like
and
halfway in a
participate.
song and then cut the feed. Gotta come out.
Teaser.
So I mean, and it is a struggle to get people to pay. Like I've heard people come in up front and be like, $15 cover. Is it worth
That's
it?
not
It's like that's not a lot of money. Like you'll spend $200 on a ticket at the PNC.
For inflation prices.
Pay for 15.
And then he's like this big. Whoever
Yeah.
sings like that.
Yeah,
You
because you're
can't
way back
see
in
the
the lawn,
stage. You're paying
like-
$15 for shitty beers. It's honestly. Give me all right. Let me just tell me how good of a time you're going to have doing this. All right, I'm going to give somebody $150. Well, I'm going with my wife, so I'm giving somebody $300 to go see something. So I get there, and I'm being forced to park a half a mile away from where I'm trying to go. So now I've got this treacherous walk uphill to get to where I'm trying to go. Now I get in there, and you're basically going through a full body scanner the way they pat you down and wand you now, right? And you got to stay in this line.
You should have to pay extra for that.
So you finally get in, and you walk around the corner, and you got to stand in this line where there's 40 people that are all trying to get beer, and you finally get up there, and you're like, all right, well, let me get a beer.
It'll be $17.
Yeah, it'll be $17, and you're like, and you go to pull
sold.
20 out to pay them. Oh no, you can't do cash here. You gotta pay.
We only take debit.
Yeah, we only take cards or tap.
Or like
Like, okay,
Apple
so
Pay
now
or
I'm digging into my bank account, which I brought $100, $200 worth of cash to buy some merch and some beer, but I can't do that. Now I got to use my debit card, and then you go and get your seat, and then you go to your seat, and you go through 6 different security people telling you which way to go, and it's like my seat's right there. No, but you got to go around here and go down there, and then you finally get there, and you can't see the person on stage. Does that sound like a fun time to
No,
you?
they just put the jumbotron up.
Does that sound fun at
You
all?
end up watching it because you can see the guy. Yeah.
Hey, you can watch it on this big screen.
Yeah.
I
didn't
mean,
pay to come
at the end of
for a
the day,
Jumbotron.
you spent $400 fucking dollars.
Yeah.
$15 to get into the Rooster. That's a problem.
And then
Then they'd still complain. No,
Yeah.
I've struggled with this too. That's why we've never charged a cover at the brewery. Is that ultimately the brewery wants people to try our beer, and
Right.
so I don't ever want to make a limitation on to come in the front door. But even though we'd really help out in paying bands, just because I've essentially paid them all out of pocket forever,
Yeah.
and that's kind of rough. But no, I just and you know, $2-3 and people like suddenly bow up. You know, it's like, oh, I don't want to pay for that.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. They do, and I'm clearly aware of it. But for me, I don't serve food. Yeah, that's the one drawback. Food has a high markup. You can make a decent profit on food, but we don't really do food here.
Yeah.
And and the reason why we have some, but the reason why we don't do food is because the entertainment's the draw. Like, I want people to come here and be focused on what's happening on stage, and without that draw, like, we're not a restaurant. It makes sense for you to pay out of pocket because you're a brewery. People are coming anyway. But what I'm doing is a little bit different. I've got to give people a reason to come here.
Yeah.
And so that's why we do the door charge, because I can pay bands, and 9 times out of 10, well, that's not true. I'd say 70% of the time, bands are making more off the door than they would have if I'd have given them what they wanted to begin with.
right.
And that just goes to show that, hey, it's okay to take a risk every now and then, because places like what we're doing here are few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
There's bars and restaurants all over every town in America, and a lot of those places are willing to pay out of pocket because they have a draw already. People are already going there, but no one has a reason to come here outside of being entertained. So that's kind of where
Most of the music venues have closed, right? Like, I look at Charlotte, and Tremont's gone, and
Yeah.
Double Door's gone, and just they got sold, land bought up, and they put some god awful building there, and they took away the thing that made it cool in the first place.
Yeah, we have in Charlotte. They have Milestone, Skylark, and Amos's, and
Snug.
Neighborhood Theater, and Snug Harbor. But it's really, if you don't know someone, if you don't know, like, if you're not good with the booking or the promoter or the person booking or the owner, it's hard to get into those places. But I will give props to Wiley from the Milestone, because he literally just goes for everybody. He's like, hey, yeah, I got you. And he's always been cool with us. And the Milestone's like a staple. It's
an institution.
Yeah.
When Wiley bought the Milestone, I'm not sure if he was aware or not that he was buying a legacy. I have to assume he did know. And what he's doing there is awesome. He's kept the true spirit of that place alive.
Right.
So shout out to Wiley. I would like to meet Wiley at some point.
Wiley's awesome.
I've reached out to him a couple of times, but with no response. I don't know if maybe he looks at me as competition. I don't look at him as competition at all.
He does all the booking there, so he deals with, like, I don't know, you probably do the same thing where you get like a flood of emails and you have to
Every
go
single day.
and you have to go through all of them, and by the time you can breathe, it's like 7-8 o'clock at night, and you're like, dude, I just did this all day, and then you have to do it again tomorrow because it happens again the next day.
Yeah, I mean, it's about a dozen emails a day at least from bands, and like, it's for me when it's promoted, when it's like out of state booking agents, I usually just delete those.
Well, you have to, because they have no local following. They haven't done any work, and if you do hire them, they're going to bring 0 people to a show.
Yeah.
But they don't realize that, or I don't know. They haven't thought
Well,
this.
if you're hot shit in your town, right? And everyone's got
You want another one?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
I'll take that
I
Grizzly Brown.
Trust me, I got enough beer.
Okay. I wasn't trying to interrupt.
This one, actually, Hoppy Feelings.
Yes. Thank you.
That is our new Hoppy Feelings. Is our,
was trying
new
to-
beer. It's
I just didn't want to interrupt.
No, that's cool. I'm about to go grab with that Grizzly Brown.
I
out
left
of
the
fridge.
Grizzly for you. Yeah. So that is
Thank you.
our. We basically revamped the Ave Maria, our English style IPA, and we most
love
beers
pale
are
ales.
going to be like fruity. So we're like, fuck, let's just put fruit in it. So now this actually has orange peels in it. To how do you make it
A little
even
bit of
more?
ASMR there.
Oh, sorry.
No. Oh, and by the way, if you guys haven't heard, Cavendish Brewery, it's in Gastonia, North Carolina. What's the address again?
Downtown.
Just downtown.
Downtown. Big red
You'll
building.
find it. Put it in your GPS. You guys
Follow the
have to
highway
check these
signs.
guys out. They're one of my favorite breweries. I go there not all the time, but
I think we need to book a metal band.
a middle band. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean it'll shell shock your regular
My
crowd
God,
for sure.
cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers. Check out Cavendish, by the way, because he's making some great. Oh man,
No, the beers are fantastic, dude.
I'm
we
choked
carry,
up because it's so good.
Yeah, we carry more. Like we have more Cavendish SKUs in our system than anybody else.
Oh my
And
God, it's so good.
It just brings a tear to my eye.
Plus, when you have like a passionate person that like enjoys what they do, like you, and you've been doing it for so long, like you said before, like I think that brings like that speaks like volumes to like someone that actually might want to get into the brewery business one day. Like you said, you started 22 years ago, and you've been, just plugging away and trying to figure it out. Like, and I had my brother's neighbor, same thing. An engineer, had no idea, and he got into being a brewer one day, and he loves it. He loves it.
Yeah.
And
There's a lot of engineers in brewing.
Yeah.
Just, if you look at them and just.
no, it makes sense because I mean brewing. There's a lot of chefs that try brewing beer too, and in a lot of ways, engineering principles apply to the culinary arts. Like it's.
A lot of
Yeah.
and chemistry and the biology and a lot of things, but
Yeah.
the reason that they're drawn to brewing in particular is there's a whole lot of machinery involved. There's thermodynamics, there's heat transfers, there's fluid transfer, there's design, there's electrical, just every aspect of it, and that's just the machinery to make. There's metallurgy, materials are a huge thing that you get the wrong metal and it'll add metallic flavors, which is a common beer off flavor. And then that's just the equipment. Then you get to the ingredients, and that's where you go from engineering to art. We're like, okay, well, I know what goes into a beer, but how do I make the beer taste good? And that's purely a sensory thing. So, yes, the equipment gets you in the door, but now what do you do with it? And,
Right.
and that's all based on experience. And I made this, and I made that, and I tweaked this, and this was better this way, and that was terrible. Don't do that again. And eventually you get better at it.
Have
Yeah.
you had to throw out an entire batch of beer?
I have. I damn near cried. Our very first Oktoberfest double batch, so 1,100 gallons of Oktoberfest, and we had to kick the drain on it when it got infected. We used a bad transfer hose, and that was yeah. So
Something as simple as a hose
yeah.
ruined 1,100 gallons
Oh yeah,
of beer.
and you pour it down the drain. And you're like, oh great, that was $10,000 of ingredients,
does
and
hurt.
just fart. That hurts. So it just very painful experiences. And I will say that my name's on the door, my name's on every can, and I will not send a crappy beer out the door.
do you ever think like
So I will kick that drain in a heartbeat.
do you ever think like Young Frankenstein, like Gene Wilder, when you make a really good
Frankenstein.
beer? Frankenstein, sorry. Like when you make a really good beer and you take a sip of it and your friends are like, dude, this is good. You're like, it's alive. It's alive.
I
do you get excited
I do get
about
a little
it like
choked
that?
up about it when people are like, wow. And
Yeah.
just like, thank you. That's what got me into this is like, what is a really good beer? Well, truth is, most people don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's subjective.
It's very subjective, and unfortunately, if you look at online ratings, they're usually based by the most least qualified people. This is not Bud Light at all. Like, no, it's not. You know, I understand it gets a 1.0 because it's not Bud Light, but that's a terrible way to rate beer. So, no, but I really just, you know, I get a ton of satisfaction out of people like enjoying the product, and it's not just about the beer too, and that's something that I've had to learn over the years, that you know, creating beer is about creating you know, happiness. It's about you know, people from like politics. You can take two people on opposite sides of an issue, and they should be able to sit down over a beer, have an interesting discussion without getting all violent and ready to kill each other, and understand each other. You know.
Was it Ben Franklin that said beer is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy? I think it was Ben Franklin.
I'm not
that said
sure.
that.
I will go with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll take that.
Smart
statement.
man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's true, man. Yeah. There's nothing like, I mean, all the way. My dad was a landscaper growing up. You know, he still is. And when I was 14 years old, he put me out there landscaping. I know what that's like. And to this day, I still do my own landscaping at home and stuff. And when you're out under the sun all day, there is not a single thing on this planet that's better than an ice cold
sack
beer.
of suds. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
No,
nothing
the
better.
best beer is the first one after a long day. Just
Yeah.
doesn't matter what it is. It's like,
And you're providing that service to everyone in Gaston County.
yeah. I mean, I look
awesome.
back at it and like, I don't know how many relationships have started at my place, how many babies have been created because of my place. There have been people married at the brewery and probably because of the brewery. We had the first lesbian wedding that I'm aware of in the town at my brewery.
Nice.
You know, it's you know, there's a lot of you know, just people meeting people, and in a place that's conducive and fun and friendly, and it doesn't exist.
And I think that's awesome because, you know, your brewery, it brings people together. You know, like your venue, music brings people together. You know, beer and music, like
They go
Thanks
hand
for
in
putting these
hand.
two things together.
literally
beer and
hand
music.
to hand. I mean, it's common
Yeah, I mean,
knowledge.
it's no secret. I mean, that's a lot of the reason why I was drawn to. There's a lot of the reason why I was drawn to Scott and Cavendish, because what he does is very similar to what I do. You just have a different medium you're doing it with. And that's the only difference. And that's why the partnership and the relationship with Cavendish is so important to me. You know, I know that not a lot of bars in Gadsden County you can get Cavendish beer, but you can always get it here.
Yeah.
You know, always. And you
Wait,
always will.
Is he selling these here?
We can.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
he's got a bunch of them here.
I would love that.
Yeah, we carry
His cans-
one
You
of
got
his
4
lighters.
taps of
His cans
Cavendish
are
beer.
killer.
Right now,
I
I've
like
got
the,
4 taps. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
artwork on the cans are awesome too.
Thank you. Yeah, our original artwork was just lame. It was a logo. It was like white backing, and
Yeah.
occasionally we made it pink backing and blue and green. It was terrible. And then we're like, art backing sucks. So we got a real artist who is and who's
You want to shout them out?
Rhonda. Rhonda, thank
Shout
you.
out to Rhonda.
You're flipping awesome.
Thank you, Rhonda.
We love your artwork. Everyone loves it. And she,
Raymond came.
one of the last beers, like she did the hoppy peelings. That's probably our last creation, the one you're drinking, with the hoppy orange peel being peeled around the hops.
Now,
That-
with you being, you know, the creator of all this, do you have a favorite?
it's like children. I'm not supposed to, but I do.
Yeah.
You know? So I will say that it changes over time depending on which kid you're pissed off at, right?
Yes.
Like I will say that probably my favorites right now, and you can always like. So it's one thing like what's a favorite? What about what's in the brewmaster's fridge right at any one
Right.
time? That's what the best thing he thinks in his brewery is. Right now, our cowboy water is killer. I love
Yeah?
that cowboy water. There's a reason it's flying in town because it's fantastic. But I also, I also really like our Glad That's Over. That's a good beer. It's a German Pilsner. That's quite nice. And our Hefeweizen, where we just revamped this is our 4.0 version of that recipe. We won the gold medal for North Carolina with that beer. And,
Do you hear that? Gold medal.
Whoop. All right. So,
Is it cool if you like tag teams?
Yeah, get in. We have a visitor.
more
We
there.
have,
Come on in.
This party's getting bigger.
How's it going?
Well, to
You
rep-
get beer and then suddenly a party happens.
Ramon.
Scott.
Nice to meet you. Yes.
So, but to finish this part of the conversation, when we first started selling your beer, my favorite beer of yours was the Mama Rose. So I'm a sour guy.
Yeah.
And over time, I've started drinking that Grizzly Brown that you sell, and
good too.
I still love sours. They're still my favorite beers, but that Grizzly Brown, it's almost like you're drinking a
dad beer.
milkshake. Yeah, you're right. It is a dad beer.
And you must be a dad.
That's why that must be why I love it so much.
That one's in my fridge too, and it's not hoppy. It's not like crisp and clear. It's got some meat to it.
Yeah.
Kind of like Dad's. It's a good beer. So that one is an English style brown ale. So British yeast, British hops, British type malts, and you just get that deep British, malty, caramelly flavor. And
I love it, man. Like I said, it's almost like you're drinking a milkshake. Speaking of, John, why don't you hand me that Grizzly Brown out of the fridge while we introduce our new friend?
You made yourself
All
tasty.
right, introduce yourself to the audience.
I'm Ramon Ingle. I am one of the guitarists for Detest the Throne. I appreciate you letting me pop in.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
Thanks for
appreciate
joining
it.
us, man.
Thank you.
So we've been talking a little bit, a lot about Brewing beer and the Cavendish Brewery, who is quasi sponsoring the show on St. Patrick's Day. And we talked to John a little bit about booking shows in the scene. So talk to us a little bit about coming here for St. Patty's Day, gigging around this area. Let's talk a little bit about your thoughts on the scene right now.
My first thought would be I love how it's starting to blossom and grow. I've noticed that. More and more local bands are starting to really support the scene more, coming together. I've noticed that. That's one huge thing I've noticed. The other thing, I guess, would be more bands are communicating and playing together more now than what you'd see.
You think COVID had anything to do with that? You think everyone getting locked up for a year and a half, 2 years?
Oh, yeah.
You think?
Why not?
I think it's also more community and more. I guess downtown is kind of blossoming as a whole.
It is. It really is there. Just driving from Union Road and just turning down the road, and then I'm like, when I used to skateboard down here, many, many moons ago, holy crap, it's grown. It's beautiful. It really is. Lights, you look over, you're like, man, streets are really clean down this way. Main Street
Nice. What happened?
Yes, this is nice. This is really nice. And then I look over at the Peter Wheel, and I'm looking over at all these other places that are, and I'm just like, man, this place is really growing.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I don't want to get political about anything, but I think that our generation, I think we're all I'm a Gen Xer. I'm on the ass end of Gen X. I was born right before 1980.
Same.
I was 81.
I think 81. So I think our generation as a whole has I think there's an optimism that didn't exist for the last 10, 15 years in this community.
Yeah, well, I'm sure of it. Like when I was 2016 when I bought the brewery block, and we spent the first year picking up bullets and razor blades and apparently I didn't realize this when I bought it, but I bought the red light district of town where I put a brewery on it, and so things you find out after that they don't tell you, right? So we had an incident or two, people offering services for shoes and stuff, but anyway, it started off pretty rough. But I remember the city. You're like, you're gonna build what, and you're gonna build it where, and it was rough, but we built it. They came. When our opening day, we served 3,000 beers
Nice.
on our opening day, and it made me really happy. It'll never happen again, but it was awesome.
That's how I feel about the Headbangers Ball. We hosted a Headbangers Ball, and that was my first weekend open, and I was like, oh my God, if we could do this every week, I'm golden. I'll be chasing that shit till the next one.
So what I found out though is that over time, we started the Anchor. nothing here. We started in Anchor, and then suddenly, a new subdivision came in across the road. And they built new houses, and things got torn down. And
When did they start building the stadium? When was the?
2018.
18.
Yeah, see,
I
that
talked
came
at
along,
the
like,
city council meeting,
that's
helping
came along, man,
get
looking good.
their bonds approved so they could fund the darn thing.
Yeah.
Which would have thought they'd put our beer in the stadium, which is kind of a crap move, but they didn't. But apparently that's all locked up by big distributors and stuff.
Yeah, that's usually how that goes.
Yeah, so go figure. Yeah. Anyway, so we sunk the Anchor, then suddenly things started popping up, and now in the last 3 years, 2.5 years, they've put $300 million in investment in this downtown strip.
It's looking good. It really, like I said,
we have the next Birkdale Valentine happening right here around us, and in 5 years you're gonna be like, what happened?
That's crazy.
Yeah, I do think it's wonderful. It's my hometown. I did get out of Gastonia for most of my 20s, and I got to spend my time in an area that was a college town. There's a lot of universities around. It was a great place to be as a young adult. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I was alone out there. My family was here. My roots were here. So I moved back home, and I start kind of getting back in touch with my roots. And I don't want to get too personal about it, but part of the reason I started this place was to kind of dig those roots in a little deeper. And I want my daughter, when she goes off, and whether she goes to college or not, whatever she decides to do with her life, I want her to want to be here, right? And you got to give people a reason to be in a community. There's so many stories that people tell. The name of this place is the Rooster, right?
Why is it the Rooster?
I'm curious.
I've
always been curious.
Yeah. All right. It was unintended, but I'm going to go.
No pressure. Just tell us all.
So all right. So I'll tell the story. I'll try to make it quick. This place was almost called Ruse, R-U-S-E, Ruse. All right. So I buy the building, and I'm trying to think of what I'm going to call it. I'm having these conversations with my wife, like, what do we call it? I don't want it to be too dumb. I don't want it to, I want something that's simple, whatever. I start thinking, and every name I come up with is just stupid. I think about it for a few minutes. I'm like, that sucks. I almost named it after one of my kids, and I was like, well, no, that's not good. So anyways, I think of Ruse because my wife is like, well, why don't you name it after one of your favorite songs or something like that? And Ruse is a song by Chevelle. I love that song. It's one of my favorite Chevelle songs.
It's a good band.
Next to Pinata, it's one of their best songs, right? But so I'm marinating on Ruse, and the more I think about it, I'm like, that sounds like a booty club. That sounds like somewhere where bitches' asses are clapping and stuff,
after party club.
Yeah. I was like, that's not really the vibe I'm trying to put out there.
You guys going to the Ruse?
Yeah. We're going to Ruse tonight.
They got great martinis.
Yeah, exactly. So I sit on Ruse for a couple of days. And I'm like, that fucking sucks too. Yeah. So I'm driving down the road. I actually remember exactly where I was when this happened. I was driving down Ridge Road, which is like a kind of a stopgap between Gaston County and southern Mecklenburg County, Lake Wylie area. I'm driving down Ridge Road on my way to Highway 49, and an Alice in Chains song comes on. And
guess which one?
It was I Stay Away was the song that came on, right? I Stay Away was the song that came on the radio. And I start thinking, and Alice in Chains, it's not really any secret. That's one of my favorite, most influential bands.
Huge band.
Yeah, huge.
Great band.
I love that band. So that song comes on, and I start kind of, for some reason, my mind starts kind of flipping through their catalog of songs. And it's like there's this picture in my head of a Rolodex spinning of all the names of all their songs, and it's like that Rolodex just stops on Rooster. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like Rooster. It's like strong, it's 2 syllables, it's 1 word, it's Rooster. And I start thinking about the song itself and how Rooster tells this story of, Jerry Cantrell wrote that song about his dad being a Vietnam vet, coming home, the way it's a protest song is what it is. It's a protest song. And to this day, that's still the case for people who grow up in little shit towns with no opportunity. That's their story. And so many people I grew up with grew up lack of options, barriers to entry, all these things. And this is what you do because there's no better choice. And I was like, man, and after my mind goes through all of these thoughts, I'm like, that's it. I have to, it's not even my favorite song by them, but it's like, I have to call this place the Rooster. And that's kind of how the name of this place came about. Man. It's not just that I love Alice in Chains. It's that song tells a story that's so relatable to so many people that grew up in this town. And back to our original point, this Gastonia had the potential to be. This was a mill town. This was a mill town for so many years. And when the mills picked up and left, it left this community destitute.
Yeah.
A lot of poor people.
Shambles, basically, yeah.
And it's taken it's taken a long time to kind of build back in this community. And there's still a lot of people that hold on to this old school mentality. With the baseball field being built, a lot of people hate on that. I'm like, why? It's opportunity for your kids, you dumb fuck. Like get with the program. Like,
how do you really feel about it?
Yeah.
Really feel about it. Love it. Yes.
But his passion.
Well, you want progress, man. You want
12% beer.
It's the Cavendish. I blame Scott for tonight's podcast. But it's the truth. Like, you want progress, and and believe it or not, I do understand why so many people are so reluctant, to the changes being made, because there's this, there's this deep-rooted, Christian, mindset in this town, which, we're in the Bible Belt, and I'm not going to sit here and hate on Christians. I'm not going to play that game. Well, there's a moral fiber that comes with deep-rooted religion that is necessary for societies to evolve.
Sure.
Right?
There's the bullshit that goes along with
it. Yes, there's a lot of that, and I don't want to focus so much on that. But what I will say is, I get why so many people are so beholden to their religious beliefs, because it gives them this sense of structure, this moral fiber that most people need to get by in the world.
Yeah.
But you can't let that destroy your kids and your grandkids' opportunity for growth.
Right, you got to allow some progress.
Yeah, you have to allow progress.
Yeah, so like when we moved into this town, there was no laws allowing alcohol production. We had to write the laws for Gastonia.
I almost brought that up earlier. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but yeah, go ahead with that.
And essentially we had to work with the city to basically copy Mecklenburg County and Charlotte, because before, 25 years ago, this was a dry county. You couldn't drink beer. You couldn't buy
a playbook or anything for it.
So, it was just kind of taking an old school, and there are still some of those influences left to this day. There's the certain clubs that are non-alcoholic. There's certain government officials that are not approving of alcoholic establishments, and that's just one of those things that generationally we have to show how much we add to this community and why they need us. Why? Because the music's better. Why? The shows are here. The brewery, like we support the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts and the Heart Associations and every other charity you can imagine. They support good causes, and so it's not all bad to have a beer now and then.
Yeah, exactly. It's the truth. It's the same thing. It's the same thing we face. I book everything. I book heavy metal. I book country. Some of the people that might come to our country shows wouldn't be caught dead at a heavy metal show. But why not? Why not? You like bluegrass, don't you? Well, guess what? Bluegrass is just country heavy metal.
I love bluegrass.
I mean, bluegrass is amazing.
It is. It's fantastic.
It's fun. Yeah.
It's fun.
That's what I told you when you first said to this place. Like, that's what I loved about it, is the fact that you're letting all
diverse.
Yeah, you're letting all
so
diverse come through, and that's what will make music grow. Music's music. I don't look at it like everybody's like genres. I'm like, nah, man, music's music. If it makes you move and you groove to it,
yes,
that's a good thing.
A good song is a good song. Yeah, I've said that a million times.
If you feel it.
And now I really think you need to bring in an Alice in Chains cover.
Alice in Chains tribute. If you're out there and you want to do an Alice in Chains set? Come on. You know, it's
Alice in Chains might need to open for PNC. I think you should really stop by the Rooster. I mean, this place was named for your song. I'm just saying this would be the most amazing press opportunity ever. You should totally
little intimate set, you know.
That's what I'm saying, man. Come do an acoustic set. You know, you won't make any money, but it's okay. It's good. It's good PR.
It's about the music. It's supposed to be.
It's not about the money.
It's about music.
I will say, like this place, like when it opened up, I was like, we had nothing from. You had Charlotte and their venues, and then you had Ground Zero. That's it.
Yeah.
And Mick from Ground Zero loves you, man. I don't know. Like I've talked to Mick a few times when we play our shows at Ground Zero, and he's like, I'm glad. I love it what he's doing up there.
I'm glad to hear that. I love him too. I do.
He wants. He's got that same mentality where he what he told me is, I build bands here, John, and any band that wants to get go to another level, you know, they can keep coming here and playing here, and they can get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And you know, that's what he wants.
Mick and I share the same mentality. We do.
Yeah.
Like before, and you know, it's funny. I haven't talked a whole lot about this, but before before I bought the property, I went to Mick. I reached out to Mick and
did some research.
Well, I asked him to have a conversation with me. Like, I only knew him from the guy that owned Ground Zero, because I've been to 100 shows at Ground Zero.
Right.
Never really had a real conversation with him. I just knew him as the owner of Ground Zero. But little did he know that he was inspiring me that whole time to get here. So when it was time, when I decided to pull the trigger, he was the very first person that I reached out to talk about it. And I actually offered to buy him lunch to come down there and let me talk to you and pick your brain about it. And, you know, he let me do that. He let me come down. I drove down there. We bought lunch, and we had this long conversation. And he was so gracious. I guess he could tell from my energy that I wasn't trying to fuck him over in any kind of way. Like he could tell I was being genuine. And we had this long conversation. He kind of gave me some things to look out for, which have all come to fruition. Every single thing he warned me about, I've seen now. And I've only been open 4 months.
That's what I've
I've seen it.
That's one thing I'll say about me. He is really honest. He will not.
Yeah.
And he won't steer you wrong. He will not steer you wrong.
Yeah, and his direction meant a lot to me, because he was one of the only venue owners that would talk to me. I reached out to several others, but no one really wanted to talk to me, but Mick did. And you know, I my relationship with him is, you know, I'll ask him for advice sometimes. You know, I'm like, there's a situation here. You know, I had to cancel some shows a few months back. I consulted him. I was like, what do I do here? Like, I feel like I should cancel these shows. I told him the situation. He was like, you're probably right. I was like, good. You know, like somebody who's been there, done that is telling me my instinct is correct. So that's what I did. And I'm so grateful for Mick and for other
really
people.
He's
done a lot, and I'm trying to replicate what he did in Spartanburg and Greenville here in Gastonia and Charlotte. Yeah, I mean, that's the truth of the matter. What I'm doing is not original.
Right.
You know, like everything I'm doing is kind of tipping my cap, even down to the name of the place.
But as a music staple for the town, that's what you're going to become a staple.
Well, look, Gastonia, you've got this opportunity to have this awesome place here. All you got to do is show the fuck up. Just come to the show.
Yeah.
Just show up.
Same thing with Cavendish. They're a staple as a brewery.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully.
You gotta admit that, we are making this place, it's already cool, but we're making it cooler.
Yeah,
we're making it better.
Cooler. And the more we do, the more we stick with this. And
the more that people can know that they're coming into an environment where, because I know this is crazy, but I've noticed one thing with the COVID, like bringing it up, but where I go now, people want to be safe. They just want to feel safe. So you're giving that, that's one thing I noticed when at your show, man. I could walk there and I felt safe.
Yeah, security team was on point. I was like, these guys look like they know what they're doing, man. Like,
and I like that. And now I even feel safer when I was riding on the road earlier. Like I said, dang, man, what the hell's going on? Man, I can roll my window down.
Clean streets.
I think a lot of it's the money. Like with all the hundreds of millions of dollars coming into downtown, suddenly the city stepped up its game. It's like, no, with all this money now comes the protection. This is a safe, fun area. We're taking care of this.
Yeah.
And it's, I've noticed it from when we built the brewery to now. We no longer have a lot of problems that we had in the beginning, and it's just the place is cleaned up, and it's really coming along well. So, but unfortunately, we got this reputation in Gastonia that we just got to shake somehow. That for a long time it wasn't.
Well, we're kind of, you know what? I don't think it's as bad as it once was, but right now we're the Pawnee to Belmont Eagleton. If any Parks and Rec fans out there, like we're Gastonia, for a long time Dallas was the county seat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but up until about the mid-1900s, they moved the county seat to Gastonia. Gastonia is where all the decisions, it's where everything happens. But all the infrastructure and the investment started on the east side of the county, and it's slowly moving this way.
To Charlotte and the river.
Because close to the river, closer to Charlotte, and it's all kind of coming down this way now. And in the end, Gastonia will be bigger and better than the Belmonts and the others.
Because they ain't got no room to really grow.
They don't.
Belmont doesn't.
Belmont's been bought out everywhere,
Oh, yeah, and bid up.
Unless you're buying something out from somebody, basically, going in and trying to buy at a restaurant that's down there doing good.
Yeah.
Look, Peterville just did. They went down there and put their restaurant. I mean, that's...
They don't
Chris is balling. But he saw
doing
an opportunity. Yeah, he's doing great.
And that's smart.
And I'm happy for him. I waited tables with that guy, back before he ever started his, food truck.
They've done well.
Yeah, and he's done well. And it takes guys like Chris, guys like Scott, guys like me, to
take a risk.
Take a risk. Say in the same way you guys do, with the music. Let's not get lost in the fact that we've got two superstars here in the metal scene.
We ain't nobody, man.
The only risk I take is that at the end of the day, I have a 15-year-old daughter that looks up to me. And right now, she is really looking up to me. Everybody has kids; they go through tough times.
Teenagers though.
Yeah, and that's I'm going through it right now.
She's not two teenagers.
Looking up
Forget
to
it.
me, and I'm trying to be there for
the hardest.
At the same time,
Is she into your music at all? Does she come see?
They came to a few shows.
So
she brought her friends one time.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, you're into it. She said, no, I'm not. I'm like, yeah, that's okay. Thank you. Yeah, we came to 2 shows. It's all. That's.
Chances are that her and her 2 friends. Chances are her friends were like all about, and she's just.
That's my dad.
Soaking. Well, no, she's probably soaking it up.
Usually you're embarrassed by your dad, not like showing him.
I think she's probably soaking up her friend's adoration. That's her dad. But then to you're her dad, so she ain't gonna give it to you, right? I think my daughter does the same thing.
What's funny is that I have a 17-year-old son, and he's never been into heavy metal at all. In the last year and a half, he has gotten into a bunch of heavy metal.
That's funny.
What did he see you perform and kind of?
His first show is gonna be St. Patty's Day here.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's coming to watch us play here.
Hell yeah.
And he is like, Dad, you ever heard of Lorna Shore? And I'm like,
well, yeah.
And so he's like, yeah, they're amazing. Like, oh my God. And so I showed him the flyer for the other show here at the Rooster, Oak Sulphur, and he lost it because he was like, Dad, it's like, I love Oak Sulphur too. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to play with him. Do you think I could meet him, Dad? Do you think? I'm like, maybe, yeah, sure. I don't know.
Sit on that couch right there, in the green room and meet him. Yeah.
So he's always been a hip hop rap kid, and then he just started getting into it.
That's awesome.
And now it's like, he's like, well, I'm going to come to that show, Dad. I'm coming.
Nice.
But his first show, will be here at the Rooster for the St. Patty's Day.
Yeah, my daughter will be here too.
Metal Bash. With Cavendish.
And see, and that's what we do. We do.
My kids don't think I'm cool yet, but I figure it's going to take more towards college before beer to be cool, right?
How old are
they? Then they'll be like, Dad, your beer's
13
really
and 15.
Oh, okay.
13 and
I'm
15.
Getting about 3 years, then Dad will become cooler. But right now, it's like that brewery takes all your time away. Like, yeah, it kind of does. It's a job.
It's a job. No, that's one of the. That's another thing. I will say this. I am proud that I was able to pull this off and do all ages.
Yeah.
Yes.
Most places that
So my
do what
kids
I
can come to this.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly.
I might have to bring.
You
we'll
might
all
get some.
do it
You
together.
might get some points with them. You bring them to this show.
I don't know if they like metal, but
Well,
Well, they don't like beer either, so why not?
we'll just bring them out.
Perfect.
let's bring it back.
But no, it's. I mean, it's true. Like nobody does all ages. You know.
They don't.
And you know, and I'll be honest. The reason why no one does all ages shows is because it costs a fuckload more insurance. Like I spend triple what I would pay insurance by making this place an all ages venue.
And I think that's why.
Really?
I don't
I
know.
thought it
Yeah.
was just like sales.
Nah,
Of,
that's-
No, I mean there is a risk you're taking by making things all ages, and that's why insurance slaps you on the dick for it. I mean, it's a lot. It's
I don't
triple.
understand.
What
I don't know
would-
if you remember, but when I brought on Echoes of Humanity, I asked you like, hey,
Yeah,
is it
you
okay if
did,
they
yeah.
play? Because we had an issue down at Art Bar in Columbia because Fear Illusion played, and their fans showed up, and their fans were not allowed in because Art Bar is a 21
21 and up, yeah.
and
But they allowed them to play.
they let them play, but they're like, we can't let any of your fans in if they're not.
They've
21.
actually lost a couple of shows because of that.
Yeah.
They've
They're
reached
just
out
really
to
strict,
me.
though.
Yeah, they've reached the Fear Illusion. Fear Illusion's awesome. They were just here Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
They destroyed the stage. But they've lost a couple of gigs because of the age restriction.
yeah.
And you know, I get it. I'm not going to hate on a venue for doing that.
They're just trying
But
to.
I
cover
want
themselves.
to foster that next generation of artists. Like I want them here. I want you to come here and be inspired and
Plus, when you're 17 or 16 and you're on a stage in front of 100, 200 people.
there's no feeling
get to
like
do
that.
Wow,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like this is so cool, you know, like, freak out, you know, you fangirl.
I would
all
freak
over it.
out. I mean, heck, I didn't even do that at 17.
Yeah,
So,
we're playing, video games and we were doing nothing.
skateboarding and trying to reach the biggest trick I could.
But some of the kids now with the bands like Echoes of Humanity and Fear Illusion, being that young and being that talented, you're like,
It's pretty
Yeah,
awesome
what
though.
the heck?
For guys like us, it's pretty inspiring and awesome to see that there is this next generation
Yeah.
that looks like, all right, like
Yeah.
well, and they
this
have
shit
that
ain't
much
dying.
talent. They're so
Yeah,
young.
they're
It took us
just-
so much longer to get to it.
what
Okay, I
were we
guess I
doing
figured
wrong?
They'll be like, no, Ramon, you gotta practice. I did practice.
I played once.
I did. I practiced.
I played,
Aw, man.
Guitar
How many
Hero.
hours?
Yeah.
A couple. I do at 8. Oh, well, that explains why.
So, Scott, is there any chance we'll see you here at an open mic one night picking that guitar back up?
Oh gosh, or bagpipes. I can,
No.
I can empty the bar though.
I love that.
Now, see,
Dude, you
now
don't
you
know
have to
what
be
to
here.
That
You gotta
do
bring
like an
the-
Irish
I
night.
will empty your bar out.
Yeah.
I mean, do you realize how loud those things are?
Oh my god.
I've had
seen
two
Corn
neighbors
Live.
move since I started playing.
Like I didn't want you here anyway. You start playing.
That would be a great way to open the St. Patty's show, though. It really
Oh,
would.
the pipes?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Bring them out. Bring them out.
I mean, you may have just backed yourself into performing here. on St.
do like- we
Patrick's
can do
Day.
Let me get a few more 12%.
We could do like
Either pass out or it'll be great.
do like Irish drinking songs with bagpipes. You know, like. I don't know.
He's
Maybe.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
Thinking about
I'd be
it.
more
He's
likely to play guitar, but
That's might be a
let's put a
winner.
pin in that one. I will noodle this one a little more. I have to brush up on my songs. Last time I played them was like, New Year's Eve with just a kilt on and like, Auld Lang Syne at midnight, like just
That is
Give
sexy
her-
as fuck.
it was
epic as
awesome.
fuck,
At least I thought so. I had a good time.
I've seen a Braveheart went through my head, and I was like, "That's awesome." I mean, I know that's Scottish, but still.
Yes, yes, it is. It's Scottish. Close enough, right? This is America. We appropriate everything.
We all drink beer, and therefore we can all be friends.
All right, this shit's gonna go crazy. Let's wrap it up, man. Let's wrap it up and keep drinking beer. We'll just go down the couch. Scott, tell our viewers, where to find you, where to look, what you got going on. Then John, and you guys, we'll just do it that way.
All right. Cavendish Brewery is in downtown Gastonia, 207 North Chester Street. It's the bright red building. I painted it red so you can see it from space. And we have 22 different beers made right here in town. We have 9 gold medals. We're about a block and a half from the Rooster, which is a hugely awesome place to go. And you should stop by. It's pretty fun.
John?
John from Detest the Throne. I do vocals. We've been playing music for about 2 years together, me and Ramon. And we have a show here, March 17th, St. Patty's Day. So if you guys are local or if you're in the area, there are $3 green beers from Cavendish Brewery. So come on out and enjoy yourself. We're going to have a great time, and it's going to be an amazing time to just hang out and enjoy beer and music and food trucks, I'm assuming.
We'll have a food truck, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just going to be a really good time.
Good times. Yeah.
Man, you hit it at the ballpark. I'm Ramon Ingle. I like to say is wake up party, do it all over again on March 17th.
Three things you do in life. 3 things you do in life.
Yeah, come on down to the Rooster down for it. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a blast. It's just going to be kick-ass time. Every time I'm here, I have a kick-ass time, so I know you will.
That's right. So March 17th, St. Patty's Day, we're going to celebrate Irish heritage the best way we know how, and that's with green beer and heavy metal. So thank you for watching this episode. Thank you all, fellas, for coming and doing this. I appreciate every single one of you, and I appreciate every single one of you. Peace and love.
Peace out.